Welcome to Secret and Lies channel, where we unveil the stories that break hearts and shatter lives. The story begins by giving a detailed background of Jim and Joanna's family. They have built a life together with 3 children, Megan, Ian, and Diana. Jim, though not their biological father, has been the only father they've ever known. Over the years, he has become their father figure in every sense: loving, protective, and responsible. His bond with the children is strong, and he has never doubted his place as their father. Joanna, on the other hand, is a devoted mother who keeps the family together, making sure everyone is cared for. This portrayal of family life shows a household where love and normal everyday struggles are balanced. Family meals, school pickups, playful moments, and minor arguments. Everything seems stable, happy, and predictable on the surface. However, there's an underlying tension, a secret Joanna has been keeping from Jim, a truth that could disrupt everything they have built. Joanna's secret, which has been kept hidden for years, is revealed in bits as the story unfolds. Before Jim and Joanna became serious, she was involved in a relationship with another man, from which the children were conceived. This man was never a part of the children's lives, and Jim, not knowing the truth, assumed he was the father of all 3 kids. Joanna, out of fear and concern about losing Jim, chose not to tell him the truth. Her decision was driven by love, but also by fear. Fear of disrupting her marriage, fear of Jim leaving her, and fear that the children's connection with Jim would change if they knew their true biological origins. Over the years, Joanna's secret has festered, and the weight of it has become unbearable. The guilt she feels is compounded by the fact that Jim has raised the children as his own without ever questioning their biological father. Joanna's internal struggle becomes a major part of her character's journey, an emotional battle between the love she has for her family and the guilt of deceiving the man she loves. As Joanna grapples with the weight of her secret, the tension in the family begins to build. Her guilt over lying to Jim and the pressure of keeping the secret takes a toll on her emotionally. She becomes distant, withdrawn, and her relationship with Jim begins to deteriorate. Jim, unable to understand why she's pulling away, grows frustrated and confused. His confusion is compounded by the children, who notice the growing tension between their parents. Megan, being the eldest, picks up on the emotional strain and tries to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but it's becoming harder for her to do so. Ian and Diana, younger and less aware, feel a sense of unease in the house, sensing that things aren't quite right. Joanna's struggle intensifies as the weight of her actions becomes more difficult to bear. The once vibrant and happy family dynamic begins to fray, with Joanna caught in a spiral of emotional conflict and guilt, unable to keep up the facade of a perfect family. The emotional peak of the story occurs when Joanna, overwhelmed by the pressure of her secret, finally decides to reveal the truth to Jim. In a moment of deep emotional conflict, she confesses that the children are not Jim's biological children, but are from a previous relationship she had before they were married. This revelation shatters Jim. He is stunned, unable to process the gravity of what she has just said. For years, he believed he was the biological father of the children, and the bond he felt with them was deeply rooted in this belief. Now, that entire foundation is called into question. Jim feels betrayed by Joanna and by the situation. The sense of shock is all-consuming. He feels as though his entire identity as a father has been undermined. Joanna tries to explain that her actions, though deceptive, were motivated by love and fear of losing him. But Jim, consumed by anger and hurt, cannot hear her words. The weight of this confession brings a deep divide between them, and the emotional fallout reverberates throughout the family. The consequences of this moment are immense, not just for Joanna and Jim, but for the entire family. After Joanna reveals the truth about the children's biological father, Jim's reaction is one of sheer shock. The moment the words leave Joanna's mouth, he freezes, as if the ground beneath him has been ripped away. His mind races to process what she just said. How could she have kept something so monumental from him for all these years? The anger rises within him, but it's also mixed with a deep sense of betrayal. He feels as though everything in his life, his love for Joanna, his bond with the children, and the identity he built as their father, is suddenly a lie. The emotional weight of the truth hits him like a ton of bricks, and for a long time, he struggles to find the right words. At first, he can't even look at Joanna. The hurt is too fresh, and he feels completely blindsided. His trust in her has been shattered, and all of the love and affection he had for her now feels complicated by a deep sense of doubt. But as his initial shock gives way to intense anger, his emotions spill over. Jim starts to question everything about their relationship, about his role in the children's lives, his worth as their father, and whether he has been deceived for years. He begins to withdraw, shutting himself off emotionally from Joanna and the kids. The family dynamic begins to crumble almost immediately. The children, already aware of the tension between their parents, now see a clear fracture. Megan, the oldest, tries to bridge the gap between Jim and Joanna, but her efforts are met with Jim's emotional distance. Ian and Diana, still young, are confused and frightened by the drastic change in the atmosphere of the house. They sense their parents' distress, but they don't fully comprehend why everything feels different. Jim's response is an emotional retreat. He isolates himself, avoiding contact with Joanna and the children as he processes the bombshell she just dropped. This emotional coldness creates an overwhelming sense of unease in the house, as the children are caught between their loyalty to Jim as their father and the painful reality of the family's fractured state. Joanna, meanwhile, is consumed with guilt and desperation. She watches as Jim pulls away, and her internal struggle deepens. She loves him and wants to fix things, but she knows the road ahead won't be easy and that the damage has already been done. After the initial shock and anger wear off, Jim is left alone with his thoughts, and it's here that the emotional journey truly deepens for him. He has to come to terms with the overwhelming weight of what he has just learned. His first impulse is to question everything he knew about his family, about his role as a father, and about the love he had for the children. He begins to spiral, asking himself if his love for them was ever real, considering that they were not biologically his. The idea that his relationship with the children has been based on a lie shakes him to his core. Jim's internal struggle is one of identity. For years, he prided himself on being a father, being the one to raise, love, and care for these children as his own. Now, that identity feels fragile and uncertain. He can't help but feel betrayed not only by Joanna's decision to keep this secret, but also by the idea that he has invested his entire life in something that might not have been what he thought it was. The love he feels for the children is real, but the biological truth creates an existential crisis for him. Can a man still be a father to children who aren't biologically his? Can he continue loving them with the same depth of attachment? His mind is filled with questions that don't have easy answers. On top of this, Jim also experiences feelings of guilt. He feels guilty for being angry at Joanna for keeping the secret, even though he knows she was acting out of fear and love. He understands that her decision was a complex one, driven by her desire to protect the family and keep things intact. But Jim's emotions aren't so easily explained away. He feels as if he's been robbed of his trust, and that feeling lingers, making him doubt the authenticity of everything that has come before. Jim also struggles with how to deal with the children. His bond with them is strong, yet the biological truth casts a shadow over their relationship. He can't help but wonder if he's truly their father, in the way that nature intended. But as he wrestles with this question, something begins to shift inside him. He starts to realize that being a father isn't just about biology. It's about the years he's spent raising them, the memories they've created together, and the love they've shared. The bloodlines may not align, but the connection he has with these children runs far deeper than genetics. This emotional battle within Jim is a defining moment in the story. His struggle represents a journey of self-discovery, a process of redefining what it means to be a father. He will eventually have to confront his anger, his pain, and his sense of betrayal in order to come to terms with the truth. This internal journey will shape his actions in the next phases of the story and ultimately influence his decisions about his future with Joanna and the children. As the days pass, Jim continues to wrestle with his emotions. His anger and confusion have settled into a simmering resentment, but the weight of the truth still presses down on him. His internal battle, however, has reached a tipping point. The longer he remains in emotional isolation, the more the silence between him and Joanna grows. Jim knows he can't continue avoiding the conversation. He can't let the distance between them turn into something irreparable. The only way forward is to confront the truth, even though he's afraid of how it will affect them both. One of the hardest decisions Jim faces is whether he should confront Joanna directly or try to make sense of the situation on his own first. But as the emotional burden becomes too much to bear, he realizes that avoiding the conversation will only make things worse. He has to know everything, even if the answers will cause more pain. His decision to confront Joanna about the truth isn't just about addressing the children's biological father. It's about their entire relationship. Jim understands that Joanna has been carrying this secret for years, and he's not sure whether she's been hiding it out of fear, shame, or protection. Regardless, the secrecy has strained their marriage, and Jim needs to hear her side before he can decide what to do next. The confrontation itself is emotionally charged. Jim approaches Joanna, and the tension is palpable. He's still hurt, still angry, but there's also a hint of desperation in his voice. He needs clarity. He needs to understand the full extent of the situation. What does she feel about everything that has happened? How does she view their relationship now that the truth is out? Joanna, too, is overwhelmed with guilt. She knows Jim is hurting, but she also knows that confronting the situation will only make the pain worse for both of them. She tries to explain her side, expressing that she didn't keep the truth from him to hurt him, but rather out of a misguided sense of protection. She wanted to shield him from the truth, to protect their family from the devastation that such a revelation might bring. However, in her heart, Joanna knows that keeping this secret was a mistake, a choice that has led them to this painful moment. Their conversation isn't easy. There's shouting, tears, and silence. Jim questions everything: his identity, his role in the children's lives, and the future of his marriage to Joanna. There are moments of understanding, but also moments of deep emotional hurt. Joanna, too, struggles with guilt and regrets, feeling torn between her love for Jim and the fear that their relationship may not survive the truth. The confrontation leaves them both shaken, and neither of them knows what the future holds. But one thing is clear: Jim has confronted the truth, and it has irrevocably changed their relationship. Whether they can heal from this moment depends on their ability to understand each other and rebuild trust. The aftermath of Jim's confrontation with Joanna is filled with uncertainty. The emotional toll of their exchange leaves both of them drained, and the cracks in their relationship are now impossible to ignore. There's a sense of rawness in their interactions. Every word feels heavy, every silence loaded with unspoken thoughts. Jim, though no longer in complete emotional isolation, remains distant. He hasn't yet decided whether he can forgive Joanna for keeping the truth from him, nor has he come to terms with what it means to be a father to children who aren't biologically his. The tension within the family grows even more as the children witness the fallout from their parents' conversation. Megan, who is old enough to understand the complexities of the situation, feels torn between her loyalty to her mother and her sympathy for Jim. She wants to see her family heal, but she doesn't know how to bridge the chasm between her parents. Ian and Diana, on the other hand, are confused and frightened. Their sense of security is shaken, and they sense that their world has changed in ways they don't fully understand. They may not know exactly what the confrontation was about, but they know something is wrong. For Jim, the uncertainty is even more profound. He questions his ability to continue in his role as a father to the children, wondering if his love for them is enough to overcome the biological truth that has torn their world apart. He doesn't want to lose his relationship with them, but the emotional weight of the situation makes it hard for him to move forward. The process of healing seems daunting, and he's unsure of how to rebuild the trust that has been shattered. His guilt, anger, and sadness linger, leaving him emotionally adrift. Joanna, too, is struggling. The weight of her secret now fully exposed, she grapples with feelings of regret. She never imagined that her attempt to protect her family would lead to this, an emotional rift that feels impossible to mend. But she also knows she can't undo the past. She has to take responsibility for her actions and find a way to prove to Jim that she is committed to their future together. However, Joanna is just as uncertain about the future as Jim is. She is unsure if Jim can ever truly forgive her, or if their relationship can survive the truth. Despite the uncertainty, there's a flicker of hope. While the road to healing is long and fraught with difficulties, Jim and Joanna have one thing they can still rely on: their love for each other. It may not be enough to heal the pain immediately, but it is a foundation they can rebuild upon, step by step. Both of them will have to make tough choices moving forward, not just about their relationship, but about what it means to be a family in the wake of betrayal and hurt. Their future is uncertain, but they're not ready to give up yet. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Story Spark. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.